Last week we went through a buyer consultation. Um, we're gonna do duties as a listing agent today. And then next week we'll do, but not so much as like going through like or a listing presentation. Um, you guys will probably get more of the nuts and bolts with that in like your productivity coaching. But we will look at a listing presentation today. Then next week, I think we're gonna go just duties with as a buyer's agent. Nathan, thank you for joining us. It's just the three of us today. So I was just telling Hannah, please stop me. I mean, this is true of all contract trainings, but please stop me at any time. We can maybe keep this a little bit more, conversational if you want. So I'll just get right into it. Okay, so listing agent's duties to a seller. I'm just going to simply go through the duties to all clients in the state of Wisconsin. So this is statutory duties that are required by law. We'll go over market research and comparative market analysis, disclosure duties, and the listing walkthrough. So this is when you are at the home. And like this is part of your, listing appointment slash um market listing presentation, excuse me. Um, Going over property preparation, marketing and showings, offer presentation and negotiation and your duties around that. And then once you do get an accepted offer, the contract to close processes. So, once we get an accepted offer, it's not over yet. And with each one of these, mostly with contract to close, we kind of go into a deeper dive with that in terms of just like really like in the weeds, nuts and bolts process with that in other trainings. And then again, like the productivity coaching really will probably go over, not probably, there are pieces incorporated into their coaching in terms of deeper dives into offer presentation, marketing. There's marketing training and tech training every week. So this is kind of just like high level surface stuff. All right. So duties to clients in the state of Wisconsin. So let me pull up a listing contract. I just want to read directly from the listing contract, what our duties in the state of Wisconsin are to all clients. And actually, we'll go over the duties to all parties as well. So in the state of Wisconsin, there are certain duties that we owe to all clients or customers. So the duty to provide brokerage services to you fairly and honestly, the duty to exercise reasonable skill and care when we're providing those brokerage services, duty to provide accurate information about market conditions within a reasonable time if you request, the duty to disclose to you in writing material adverse facts about a property, the duty to protect your confidentiality, the duty to safeguard your trust funds, and the duty when negotiating to present contract proposals in an objective manner. And then because any seller that is going to sign with the firm, they are automatically going to become a client. So that's true of a seller client. And then if you are going to be entering into a buyer agency agreement with a buyer, then these additional duties are owed to that buyer as well. So we'll touch on that next week. So these additional duties look like, so this is 93 through 104. So the firm or the agents will provide at your request information and advice on real estate matters. So that's key here, the ability to give the client advice. The firm or one of its agents must provide you with all material facts affecting the transaction, not just the adverse facts. So material facts, it's a little challenging to explain this, but these are pieces of information beyond things that are just going on with the property itself. So like an adverse fact with a property is really, looking at like defects in terms of the property condition, like how is the roof, how is the foundation? That's an adverse fact, and that's related to the property. If there are material facts beyond that, like if we learn that a buyer does not have an intention to go through with the sale, that is a material fact. That has nothing to do with the property itself, but the transaction. We have a duty to disclose that to the seller if we learn something like that. I'm another material fact that I'm going to kind of use with a buyer example. If a set of train tracks is in the back of a yard, I need to point that out to a buyer. That's material information in terms of resale value. So that's not, again, with the property itself, but a condition, a fact beyond that property that would be material to that client. So as a client in the transaction with a client of the firm, excuse me, we owe them the duty to disclose those facts beyond just adverse facts. The duty to, the firm and its agents will fulfill the firm's obligations under the agency agreement and fulfill your lawful requests that are within the scope of the agency agreement. The firm and its agents will negotiate for you unless you release them fully from this duty. I know this is a hot button. This is why we are in relationship with the seller. This is why a seller has hired us. It gives us the ability to negotiate for them when we receive an offer. So it's beyond just marketing the home and advertising the home. It's the ability to negotiate for them with the buyer's agent. The firm and its agents will not place their interests ahead of yours. So this is key as well. So I think a very good example of that is if, and again, I'm going to use kind of a buyer example of this. If a property comes up and you're in a client relationship with a buyer agency agreement, and you have an interest in a property that your buyer would like, you can't go for that property over them. You need to present it to them as first, and they have a sense of right of first refusal to say, no, I don't want that. And then you could go for it. In terms of monetary or commission reasons, you could be put in a position where I can't think of a clear example right now, but your commission should not affect any decisions that the seller might make in the transaction as well. Again, their interests are ahead of ours. All right, I think that's the last one. So this is something, when you're going over a listing contract with a seller, you're going to present these to them, before you get into the topic of multiple representation. That's a whole nother training. So again, these are statutory duties to our clients in a seller firm relationship. And we are fiduciaries for our clients. So in real estate, a fiduciary is an agent or broker who is legally obligated to act in the client's best interest, again, with the highest standard of care, trust, and loyalty. So they're putting a very big asset in our hands to manage carefully with care, trust, and loyalty. So, all right. So then getting into kind of just like our general duties as a listing firm. So first up, when you receive a call from a seller and going on a listing appointment, the first thing you're going to do is, research the market and do a comparative market analysis, neighborhood research as well. You want to, again, go into that appointment with as much information as you can obtain. That's also looking at city or municipality records as well. Go into that appointment knowing the full history as much as you can obtain about the property itself, looking up the past sales history, looking at the tax records. So going to MLS, again, learning how to do a comparative market analysis. And I know these are taught in other areas. An accelerator, for example, MLS has their own CMA training as well. But generally speaking, I mean, it's really looking up the past sales in a neighborhood in, relatively the same characteristics as the home in question. So, as the subject property, excuse me. So, I just did a CMA for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath bungalow in Shorewood. My process was to first look up everything that sold in Shorewood, 4-bedroom, 2-bath. If you have not taken your MLS trainings, we can add that to your kind of to-do training list. I'm going to look up anything that's currently active in Shorewood, 4-bedroom, 2-bath. I'm going to try and find anything that's pending or delayed as well. And then I also want to see everything that has sold in the past year. I'm kind of a freak about looking up comparables. I do it 2 or 3 times in different ways. So I'll usually go back to the first of last year. I kind of a key point with this is that you are trying to also keep in mind that an appraiser is going to be coming in and potentially doing their own market analysis on the home. And part of their guidelines, they can only go back so far, usually a year. With the kind of low inventory, I have just been going back a little bit more than a year just to see what's out there and just to see what trends have been last spring. But again, we don't want to go. My point with this is to say that you're not going back 2 or 3 years, maybe 16 months, 18 months at the most, to see, what the market did and how things sold. So, and again, you're obviously going to keep it to the municipality. You can take deeper dives into specific quadrants of a municipality or specific streets. It all just kind of depends, and really knowing your market is everything. I mean, one block can make all of the difference in some areas. So you really just need to be knowledgeable about your market. But a good rule of thumb always just the municipality itself. With the city of Milwaukee, you're going to narrow it down to the zip code. All right, I'm going to see everything that sold in Shorewood last year. I'm going to keep it real generic. So 27. And then, looking at past sales history of a home. And the one in question that I did last week, I know that the home sold in 2023 for $550. So, that allows me then to really, I can narrow out everything. I can exclude everything like up to probably 550 and really focus on things that have sold above 550. I think it's a good idea too. I know it's my preference or my approach with sellers is to kind of come in with a range. Once I have come down, like once I've done my research. And then from there, after I've gone through the home, really take a deeper dive into the comparables to come up with like a definitive list price. Um, I want to show you the tax information. So when I take a potential listing call, the tax data is actually probably the first place I'm coming. So I'll do my current listing. So I have a listing right now on 85th Street. And the pieces of information that I'm pulling up, and you guys can see this, right? The tax data. Okay. Sometimes with pop-ups and MLS that doesn't show. So I'm looking at the assessment. I'm looking to see what the tax records are. One thing that I do when comparing it against other properties is to see how the total assessment compares to another property's total assessment. And this is in the city's eyes. This doesn't mean, you know, the total assessment for this property is 168. We listed it at 279. So it's not necessarily going to be in line with what you think it would list for, but it's just a good data point to see how the city views it. Then again, square footage, bedroom and bath count, the style of the home there. And then you can see here what it sold for last. So I sold this property to them back then, so I knew what it sold for. But if I hadn't been a part of the transaction when they purchased, this tells me what they bought it for down here. And then also looking at the sales history prior to that. So just good data points, good information when preparing for the comparative market analysis, the CMA. So once you narrow down where you want what comparables you want to use, then from there, let's say we're going to use all 27 of these. Then from there, I'm going to check mark all of them. I'm going to go to CMA, use all selected results. And you can do a full CMA. This is what you would want to do for a listing appointment, a quick CMA and a statistical CMA. I'm never really doing the quick CMA. I'm using a statistical CMA for a buyer if they're kind of determining what they want to, or how they want to offer on a home, what they want to offer on a home, excuse me. So full CMA, statistical average field, it defaults to total square footage. I just leave it to that. And then you're going to fill in the rest of the information from here. Again, this is not a CMA training class, but you can put in this. Ooh, excuse me. Hold on. Just lost it. Here we go. Nope. Here we go. Can you guys see it? I lost it for a second. Okay. If you have the prior MLS number, that's really helpful. You can just upload the fields from an existing listing. So if you have the sold, this is even from years ago, you can put it in here and submit it, and then it'll auto-populate the fields from there. So you would just go through and it will spit out a CMA for you once you go through the fields. Let's see here. Here's one we can show you. Yeah, I think this is. So this is what that CMA looks like. So gives a map of the comparables that you use to price the home, the list of the a list of the addresses of the comparables that you used, and then details about the subject property itself. And then again, details more in depth, along with pictures. Price analysis then is where you can get into the low, average, median, and high sold prices of closed listings. Then it'll give a recommended price there. Sometimes it looks different. Overall market analysis will give you price per square foot on any of the sold listings, all of the listings used. So again, this is just one data point. Here's the range. So the low is 300,000, the high is 330. And I'm sure that the original recommendation hit right in the middle. I think Sarah Jo, my business partner, she probably manually entered that in, which you can do, knowing what she wanted to price it at. But again, you can just use that range to help inform where you're likely going to be. So this will be included in your listing presentation. Again, point here is just arming yourself with this information prior to that listing appointment. Any questions so far? Comments? Okay. Okay, so then disclosure duties and the listing walkthrough. So when you're at the property itself, you're gonna have your listing presentation. And part of that process at the listing appointment, you are going to be doing a walkthrough of the property. So a seller in a transaction has their own duty to disclose any material adverse facts. So again, these are conditions of the home that could be deemed a defect that a buyer would need to know about. So again, these are conditions of the, I'll show you an example of a real estate condition report, but it asks for everything under the sun in terms of, are there defects in the roof? Are there defects in the foundation and the electrical systems and the heating systems, etc. But we have a duty as well as listing agents to walk through the property and observe the property and make our own notes about what we see and make sure that we are disclosing anything that the seller is not disclosing. So, part of your conversation with the seller on this is, if you don't disclose this aspect of this condition of the property, I, as a realtor, have a duty to disclose. So if you have a seller who is apprehensive about making disclosures, you can always say that you usually writing that situation real quick, and they'll make the disclosure themselves. A good tool that you could use is called the Listing Selling Agent Inspection Form. And this is a WRA form. This is found in Zip Forms. And I know we do have this in our global templates for our listing packets, excuse me. But you could use this if you wanted to print this out and bring it along to your appointment. This is not something that you need to share with the seller in terms of leaving a copy of this, but this is just like a good template for you to like kind of mark off things or make notes as you are walking through the property. So I think a good practice with this would be to, make these notes as you're walking through the property, and then you're checking this against what the real estate condition report might say. And another thing too, as you're going through that property with the seller, even just pointing out like, okay, I see a crack in that foundation wall, you're going to want to make a mention of that. And you're going to say that to the seller in real time, obviously. But then, put it on this inspection form as well. Um, so I think, again, like I said, you can just take your own notes, but I think this is just a good template to have in order to just kind of be organized with your information. Actually, and then on the flip side of that, I wanted to show you guys as well the profile sheets that I think are a really great tool. Let's see here. How do I get back to? I have to get back to MLS. MLS forms and profile sheets. So this is another good like template to use when you're walking through a home. So depending on the listing type, so a single family, a two family, or a condo profile sheet, those are 9 times out of 10 the three listing types you guys are going to be dealing with. You could also print this out and bring this along to make notes. So this is the information that MLS requires when you enter it into MLS, the data entry, excuse me. So again, you could walk through the home. Some of these things you're not going to be adding while you're walking through the home. But like, the full bath count, bedroom count, the total room count. And really on the back here, you could start making circles around the characteristics of the home that you need to know for later when you enter this into MLS. So the type of home, any water features, some of these, anything with an R is required, and some of them are not. They're going to be non-applicable. So, if it was on a cul-de-sac, you could indicate that. The style of the home, whether it's a 1-story, 1.5-story, or 2-story, you're going to need to indicate the architecture. Is it a bungalow, a ranch, or a colonial? The garage, is there an electric door opener? Is it heated? Is it, moving on to the driveway aspect? Is it on an alley? Is it paved? Is it a shared space, etc.? So again, I think having this and that visual inspection form along with you just to serve as templates, so that again, organizing what you need to look for are really good to bring along. And then the real estate condition report. So again, these are, and we've got separate trainings on just the real estate condition report alone. But these are the seller's duties. This highlights the seller's duty to disclose any defects going on with the house. So this is the form that they are using to indicate what defects are in the home. They're going to say yes, no, or non-applicable. If it's a yes answer, then they're going to explain what it is in the space right after that section. But again, if there's anything amiss, if you saw something that they didn't put on here, referring back to your visual inspection form, that's where I would say, okay, we're misaligned here. We need to either adjust the real estate condition report, or Mr. Seller, I need to make the disclosure myself. The form that you would use is the disclosure of material adverse facts. A good example of when you might need to use that as well. I had a situation recently where it was an estate. The seller he was exempt from filling out the real estate condition report. But then I saw some things about the home that I indicated. So it was just like lights that would not turn on, even like it wasn't even like bad light bulbs. It was just like the fixture itself. There must have been like misaligned wiring or something. So I disclosed that, so that might be another instance where it's not even like the seller is not willing to disclose it. It's just by the nature of the transaction. They just, or per their attorney's advice in this case, just leaving everything alone. We don't know anything. So, but then I made my own disclosure beyond that. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Um, so then, getting into property preparation. So I'm going to show you guys, um, well, so we'll kind of put this all together. So like property preparation and marketing and showings. Um, Last week I showed you guys a copy of our buyer consultation, like our Keller Williams generic version of it, that you guys can personalize, with the marketing team if you want. And I highly suggest just doing that and using this template, and working with the marketing team to get it personalized to you. Um, but, part of the listing presentation is going to be talking about pricing, of course, staging the home and getting the home ready. So staging might not even look like what we think of as traditional staging in that we're hiring an outside person to come in and bring in furniture, but it could just be the depersonalization of the home. So, and I didn't, this didn't used to be like a phrase that I would say like I don't know. I wasn't in the practice of just using this phrase. But like I'm just now like flat out saying to sellers, like my job is to get you the most amount of money for this house, like so part of this process is making it as neutral as possible. Um, and these are the tips that we would have for your home specifically in order to yield the most amount of buyers who are interested in making an offer on your home. So, going through that process with them is part of your duties and making sure, again, they are your fiduciary. You are trying to, um, their interests, like we need to make sure that they are doing everything possible in order to get the most out of their asset. So it's right in here. Staging is the process of simplifying, rearranging furniture, adding decorative elements, and depersonalizing a home to maximize its appeal to buyers. So I'll just share too, part of my, when I'm going through a home while I'm looking for like potential defects, I'm also looking at the room. And like just I'm making notes to myself. I'm not necessarily saying them out loud to the seller. But like what would I do to prep the home? So I'll like go through a room by room. Um, excuse me. I go through it room by room. And so part of my process with them, and part of the value I feel I bring is like I've got this all laid out for you. You can take this and you can listen to me or you cannot, but this is what I feel like we should do in order to, again, kind of just prep the home for market. And again, I just like to roadmap it for them and make it as easy on them as possible. People love checklists. If they can just see something that they need to do and give them a timeline, give them a deadline, people really respond to that. Yes, again, importance of neutralizing. I think that's really the key. We, kind of back to just, I don't know, like right sizing marketing plans in real time as well. So we just had a listing that it looked great with the seller's stuff in it, and we took pictures while their stuff was in the home. Um, but we didn't end up listing it until 2 weeks later when they had already moved out. And we both agreed, we're like, ah, this does not show as well without their stuff in it. And it was a listing in a really hot neighborhood, and we're like, we just gotta like stop and pull it and right side, or like readjust. So we had it on for a week, and we had a tons of showings, but people got in there and just didn't like it. And so we pulled it. We had the sellers paint. It was pretty neutral already, but like it was really dark, so we had them just paint it white. And then we got a stager, and now we have an offer. Like it's just to kind of take these anecdotes too, you know, you can share these kind of anecdotes to somebody who is you know, apprehensive about making changes to a home. It works. It's not rocket science. It really is just like the idea is to make sure buyers can see themselves in it, neutral as possible, bright and light. So, um, then another reason why a seller is coming to us is, and this is probably number two or number one in the duty to negotiate, our ability to negotiate, marketing the home. So they're hiring us to make sure that we are getting it out to as many people as possible. So getting it into the MLS. You know, when we're talking about MLS excluded listings, you know, really talking to them about the negative aspects about going into an MLS excluded. Why, the reason why they're hiring us is to, again, get it out to as many people as possible. And that third party website syndication. So once we get it into MLS, then this is going to be fed out to a number of other websites, like hundreds of websites, you know, your Zillow, your realtor.com, and so on. So again, getting it out to as many people as possible. Reverse prospecting. So this used to be a tool, this is from MLS. This used to be a tool that I would only use if like it wasn't selling and I just wanted to make sure that, or like if we weren't getting an offer, but now I make it a practice to reverse prospect right off the bat, like the first day that it's in MLS. So I'll show you guys this. And under our menus here, you can go to reverse prospecting. You can choose, and you can do it while it's in delayed. So we've got a listing in delayed. Showings don't go live until Friday. But I want to get it out to agents now so that they can let their buyers know, and then they can set up a showing for this weekend. So you click which listing you want to do and do run reverse prospecting, and it's going to pull up every single agent that has a buyer search set up for this type of property in this area. So, you know, all of these people may not have a buyer right now for the home, for example. But this doesn't mean, I mean, some of them probably have active buyers. A lot of agents will just set themselves up on MLS searches so that they can see listing inventory come in real time. But no matter, you know, you're just going to click them all. It kind of takes a minute. You're going to click them all, send out an email, this is coming, send your buyers, and it's just a real easy thing to use. Another way to get the house out. One thing I didn't even put on our as a idea was just getting it on our coming soon pages. Willis also has on kwrealtymke.com our listing network. So you could put it here too. Our Facebook pages. So we've got that coming soon group. You can post it there. If you need help with an open house, you can post it there. So yeah, this is great. I mean, this is another tool too for when you have buyers. You can come here and look at this list. If you're looking for an excluded property, if you're, maybe you've exhausted the market and there's nothing out there for the buyer, you can come here to see what might be coming up, So this is a really powerful tool that we have. Social media marketing, of course. So, gone are the days where we can not do social media marketing. So you're going to establish whether you do it from your personal page or from a business Facebook or Instagram page, you're going to get the word out there. So again, this is why a seller is hiring you and paying you a commission, is to market the home. Print materials, some people leave print materials at the home. We're still in that practice. It used to be like people would have stacks of like a real estate condition report plus the data sheet, usually now it's just one because we can access all of that in MLS. Open houses, that might be part of your marketing plan. Showings and showing time. So setting up the home and showing time is getting that lockbox on and getting the buyer or the seller set up to receive notifications. Going over, I put this in here, going over their obligation to hide any valuables. Again, they're released, like there's a hold harmless statement in our listing contracts. The seller needs to make sure they're hiding any valuables for showings and for open houses. And back to our listing contract. I think we had this question recently. So marketing. So this is line 17 through 21. Joan, I think we had this question in just like our compliance channel. Seller authorizes and the firm and its agents agree to use reasonable efforts to market the property. Seller agrees that the firm and its agents may market the seller's personal property, blah, 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 blah. The marketing may include, and this is where you're going to list what you're going to do. But we need to be careful here because you cannot list something here and then not perform. You have to perform what you have indicated you are going to do for the seller. So a lot of times what people do here, like my listing contract just says the Dietrich Swinney and Associates marketing plan. And then when we're talking to the sellers, our marketing plan includes X, Y, and Z. If you're a solo agent, again, you can say the same thing, the marketing plan of Dennis Greetons, so you can keep it generic. And I would probably advise that you just do that. And then you're just, again, in your listing presentation, outlining what you are actually physically doing. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I'd like to add what you were saying about hiding valuables. One thing that's targeted so much are prescription pills. So hide those too.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of times in a listing presentation, I would do a separate handout to the seller with
Okay.
my marketing plan. So it wasn't included in, the other things, but it was separate. So I just referred to that under marketing because they had a copy of what I was going to do. But you're
Okay.
so right to warn, make sure you do what you said you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, we're almost at the finish line here. I thought we were gonna not take up the full hour, but I think we are. Okay, so you've done all the things, you've done your job, you marketed it, the property prepped, you got buyers making offers, so you're gonna accept an offer now. So, our duties as it relates to offer presentation and negotiation. So, when you receive an offer, you're gonna deliver it timely to the seller and you're going to coordinate a time with them to make sure that we're presenting it. So, obviously we're out in the field a lot and, as soon as you receive an offer, it's not like you can talk to them right away. So my practice always is to deliver it with the key points and then, hey, now let's coordinate a time to talk later and go through it more in depth. And then during that time, I am getting in touch with, I don't know why I said this. I'm getting in touch with other agents who have shown the property. I'm letting them know that an offer came in. My goal here is to see if we can drum up another offer. Um, so again, that's part of your duty as a fiduciary. You know, again, our goal is to get them as much money as possible. So we're just making every effort to do that. Um, Objective presentation of that offer. So, um, you're just going through and highlighting the pros and cons of the contingencies. Um, we're not bad mouthing the agent on the other side. We're not making comments about, I don't know, if you have information about the buyer, you're not, you're doing it objectively based off of the terms that they have provided. You're going to be going again over the contingencies of the offer, speaking not only to, the pros and cons of a contingency, but like speaking to market trends with the contingencies. So, and that's where Charlie's Tuesday meeting talking about offer trends in terms of competitive offer writing is really helpful. Um, Counteroffer, is this something, again, having a discussion on what is meaningful to the seller and what the seller might want to counter back in terms of, and it could be anything. It could be not just price, but maybe it's a closing date. Maybe the closing date is not ideal for the seller. Um, there's a whole number of things. In terms of, financing, you're going to look at the lending, the loan type, an FHA loan versus a conventional loan, going through the pros and cons of that. Um, Appraisal contingencies. Um, is it a case where you could potentially do a multiple counter offer? Have you received multiple offers on the home that you could try and attempt to work with multiple people to get them, again, to bring it up, get them the most favorable terms? Is it a situation where you could potentially get a secondary offer? I feel like we're kind of getting out of that in terms of, it is still very much a seller's market, but I don't know that we're seeing as many multiple offers. It all depends on the market. And, it varies within Southeast Wisconsin, so, but there might be an opportunity for the, again, if there's multiple offers, maybe you could try and pick another offer to see if they can stay in secondary and use that, as leverage with the buyer number one. So, yeah, just kind of setting up the best possible scenario for the seller and working with the buyer, of course. I mean, it's part of our values, win-win or no deal, right? So, but again, like the job here is to like make all of the considerations. So, um, and then contract to close. So once you guys have that accepted offer, your duty is to, keep the the contract running through to closing. So as a listing agent, we've got to do our title order process. Again, we've got separate trainings on title, commitment, title order, dates and deadlines, making sure that you are identifying the contingency deadlines and writing them down and communicating them. A lot of people, and I always say this, like, I feel like there's a big opportunity for you to shine during this process, because there's a lot of details here. And, it could be the difference of a negative feeling about the process altogether if there's some ball that's dropped here. So, um, you could shine all the way up to that accepted offer and then, a ball gets dropped here and it could just like sour the whole thing, unintentionally. Um, so a lot of times, people are hiring contract to close coordinators. And they're just kind of like mentally releasing themselves of this process. Um, you cannot mentally release from an inspection negotiation, though, or an appraisal contingency, anything with the terms that might allow for further negotiation. Obviously, as the agent, you are there to be doing that on behalf of your seller. This is not a contract to close manager's duty. So again, the inspection negotiation is the next kind of hurdle, the next piece. Biggest piece in terms of, um, you know, working with the buyer on what they want to see fixed. And a lot of that is set up already through that listing presentation process. You know, if you are going through the home, you can also, part of that conversation is like, we could probably get a lot of this taken care of before we even go to market. So that we're just like eliminating that objection altogether. Um, so anyway, um, but walking them through that process. So, okay, a lot of information. Again, each piece of this can be delved into much deeper. But generally speaking, these are our duties as a listing agent from the time that we are taking that first initial phone call to go on a listing appointment all the way to closing.
Excellent job, Steph. Really good.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Thank you, Joan. Stop share. Good. Okay. All right, well then we'll see you next week, Monday, and I think we're gonna go over buyer's duties. So, all right, we'll see you guys
Thank
next week.
you, Nathan and Hannah, for being on. You got an incredible amount of information today. Too bad more people didn't participate.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here. Yes. Okay. Bye, guys.